Welcome to episode 1 of Benko Day, where I show you how to play the very best system against d4, and also not just including the Benko, but it's also including some other different things like what to do if they avoid the Benko, say by not playing d5 or not playing c4, or even if they decide to play one of the flank openings, which is what my opponent did in this game with the move knight to f3. And the nice thing is that if you play all three of the best chess weapons in the opening, then you can actually play the move c5 here, because if they go e4, it's going to transpose back into Sicilian Day, which is what we cover on Thursdays, while Saturdays is Benko Day for each day of the week. Then after d4 takes and knight takes d4, against this move order, which you might see quite a lot in Blitz and Bullet, it's actually best to play the move d5 and not let white put a pawn either way in the center, because if you just get in e5 and knight c6 and knight f6, you're just going to dominate the center and simply have a much better position after something like this to give an example. So in any case, I decided to play the move knight f6 because I figured that if they do play the move c4, which is the best move here, that well basically I've transposed back into a line of the anti-Benko, which is where after d4, knight f6, c4, c5. Instead of d5, the second most common move here, which if someone really hates to face the Benko, they might play knight f3, which is something you could get via symmetrical English, like if they were to go, for example, c4 and then play like knight f3 and d4. Well, you could end up in the same position that way as well. So it's definitely something that's relevant for Benko players to know how to deal with this. But now I'm going to share with you my secret Hedgehog move order trick, and that is playing the move of b6 here. Now, you might wonder why we're playing b6 and not, say, a more natural developing move here. The great thing about b6 is that it basically move orders white from playing a d4 opening to playing an e4 opening. And what I mean by that is that after knight c3, bishop to b7, well, white's no longer able to play their usual g3, bishop g2 castles that they normally want to do when they play this system, because now our bishop is blocking it. So I have to come up with something completely different. And the way that most people play at a high level is f3 and playing it like this, which is actually going to lead to this hedgehog setup, a fairly similar one to what we're going to see in the game, in fact. And this is one I'll probably end up covering in some later episodes, some later videos, but basically to give you kind of a starting point, the stuff you're kind of going for is basically to go for something like this with knight d7, rooks in the center, queen b8, and then try to attack them later. Now, in the game, my opponent played queen to c2, and it turned out in this position like I can actually have played a little bit more ambitiously, that I played the move e6 and decided to just sort of stick with the setup with e6, d6 anyway, not really caring too much about what my opponent did. But if you do want to punish him for playing queen c2, there are moves like e5, playing a little bit more dynamically that you can explore in your own time as as a way to kind of get more reliable equality, if that's sort of what you're looking for, kind of using your lead in development. Or after e6, e4, also moves such as bishop c5 and trying to attack the center are also possible here. In fact, I think after e4, the play almost resembles a bit of a Queen's Indian defense in some respects. I think if white had played a3, had this move thrown in there, it would actually transpose into a Queen's Indian if that is extra tempo. So anyway, we actually kind of move ordered white into a worse version of a normal opening, but as it happens, I played the move d6, which does at least allow us to kind of see a thematic sort of position. And also my opponent in this game was rated 1800 on chess.com Blitz. So I think it's about the rating where I think most of you will be very happy to beat an 1800 player in your own games. And you can see he didn't go for the critical subs with long castles and trying to pawn storm, but did what most people do, which is to develop their bishop and castle. But this position here, I think, is already quite fine for black, as with the queen being on c2, kind of has the issue that with rook c8, our rook is going to be opposite the queen, which already opens up all kinds of tactical ideas. Also, the bishop on d3 is probably better on e2, so when the rook goes to d1, you've got some pressure here. Now, after rook a to d1, I saw a few kind of appealing ideas in the game, but I decided just to stick with the setup, realizing, okay, I can play my moves quickly and confidently while my opponent is going to be thinking and falling behind on the clock. And after seeing what happens in the game, you'll probably understand why a move like rook c1 might be the best here, even though it does lose a tempo as such. In the game, my opponent played queen d2, trying to get the rook off the c file. But here I found a nice move that already gives black an extremely good position. And you might want to put in the comments below what move you would play if you're in black shoes here. Because if you find this move, it just really sets up the momentum for the rest of the game for black. And also, by the way, if you are enjoying this video, then do make sure to leave a like and also to consider subscribing. That way you'll be able to enjoy Benko Day on Saturdays, Cillian Day on Thursdays, London Day on Tuesdays, and also various live streams I'm doing several times a week. So in this position here, a normal move would be something like, say, knight e5 to hit the bishop, or a move like rook e8, just, planning to kind of go bishop f8 and keep the option of going d5 or b5 later. But clearly the best move here uses the fact that the c3 knight is not well enough defended, and the Hedgehog is full of these little tactics. It looks like a system opening, it looks really solid, which it is, but it also has a lot of counter-attacking potential. And the move b5 is a really great move, realizing that if they take the pawn, that we are going to win a piece as such. So my opponent plays the move rook c1, kind of correcting the mistake, but it's already a little bit late, because now after takes, and queen b8, just getting off their c-file of the rook, well, now we have 2 pawns in the center to their 1, so we already have a central advantage. We already have ideas of preparing the d5 break, meaning that white's position is already slightly tricky to play, and rather than trying to get another piece in the game with a move like rook fd1 to at least fully complete his development, instead white played knight a4, which now allows me to play the other thematic break in the Hedgehog. The first thematic break was b5 that we saw before. The second one is the move of d5, which I played here, which is much easier to get in when they don't have the pawn on c4, by the way. That's definitely a move you should be asking yourself, like, can I play this move or not? And here it turns out we can, that after takes and knight d5, our knight gets more active with the recapture. We're threatening to grab the bishop pair. And in fact, here white already has to give up the bishop pair with the move bishop d5 just to avoid a massive disadvantage at this point. It's a nice thing about this Hedgehog move order is that you not only make things easy for yourself, but you also make it tough for the opponent, so you have to try and find a good plan, which is going to be very hard to do in this sort of position. Like, you have to be a very advanced player to kind of know how to sort of make progress with your space advantage. And even then, black's position is still not all that bad. But in the game of bishop f2, I still played the lazy move of rook fd8, just wanting to complete development. But in hindsight, I probably should have been a bit more aggressive and gone for the attack with bishop d6, which actually doesn't just have the idea of attacking the pawn, but also does threaten the move of bishop f4 to win the exchange. So that's kind of why white would be compelled to play g3 here. But then g3 is also severely weakening them on the long diagonal, and we can just build up an attack in this way, knowing that white's king will be unsafe basically for the remainder of the game. Unfortunately, I didn't play such a good move, but the nice thing about these best black weapons, these 3 best black weapons I cover in this channel, is that even if you make 1 or 2 mistakes, you're still going to get a good position and you're still going to be able to beat most of your opponents without too much trouble. Because here my opponent wasn't able to handle the tension, and rather than playing a move like bishop g3, which is kind of what I was expecting him to play, to be fair, he played the move queen a5. And I'm a little embarrassed to admit that it took me a few seconds to actually see this move for black. But again, maybe you can also think about it and see if you can find the move for black that does give a winning position. Once I played this move, the game was basically over. And the move I played here is the move of bishop to b4, simply trapping in the queen. And my opponent ended up playing on till mate, but the result wasn't really in any doubt. After takes, it's just a matter of just playing sensible moves. H5 is an idea that even in equal material position, you'll often see this as a way to create attacking chance against a white king without weakening your own king too severely. Here's rook c4, bishop d6, a little bit late, but we got there in the end. You take the pawn. And from here, even though we're up material, we're not going to just sit in our laurels. We just keep on attacking, knight e5. Now knight d3, just going for the fork. We don't want to give the opponent a chance to get back in the game. We want to make sure that we really finish them off. So takes, and finally we had a checkmate with all of the pieces involved in the mating pattern, which obviously is quite aesthetic. But with this you can now see my secret Hedgehog move order trick, which actually, to be fair, it isn't one I came up with all on my own. I actually picked it up from this book called Chess for Tigers by Simon Webb in 2005, where he was playing, I think, against Jonathan Hartston, if I remember correctly. And Simon Webb was his play was playing like D4, C4, these kind of like flank opening and D4 based systems, but often won't go for a kingside fianchetto. And Hardston knew this, so he just played B6, said, okay, you can't play G3 anymore, and now you're forced to play an E4 type of position instead, which Simon Webb didn't have any experience in, so Hardston just completely outplayed him from this kind of dragon type, from this hedgehog type of position. And yeah, just won a very nice game that, continues to inspire me to this day, as you can see from the game here. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you do have any requests of topics you want me to cover for Benko Day in future episodes, then do let me know. Like, I've got a lot of fun ideas planned, a lot of quite recent games to share to keep your knowledge of the positions up to date. But yeah, definitely excited to share more of these with you. This is just the start of a very long series to come. And yeah, on that note, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.